so now I understand.
Oh no!
Hey, I get it now, Ariel. God, okay.
Yes.
Where's Doofenshmirtz? Ah!
Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
It's so good.
It's just so good.
The balloon is what gets
In
me.
Dusselstein, I didn't have anything. What?
That was good.
That's my son's favorite thing. I give him hours and hours of fun from just doing bad impersonations. In Dusselstein, I didn't have a balloon at all. Now I'm a government teacher. Okay, all right, so, yes. Optimus peers no more. I am enthralled with that. Wow, that is impressive. What an entrance.
Done every class.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Wow, 4 points alone from that. Yes, a point for Crafty Al, a trademark, patent pending. We. Jake at State Farm.
Yep.
Okay, but okay, I gotta take a video of this too. I gotta take my son.
Dude, you gotta get the whole gang.
Yeah,
They
all
have
of
one-
us together.
It's awesome.
We have Vegas, Herb, Candace. We have Isabella.
Okay, if they're in different classes, maybe get a picture and send it to.
I have
There's
no-
one on Instagram.
So.
Terry.
What?
Yeah, if you had airdrop here, that would be really good.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not that hip. We have ramen noodles. No, instant ramen.
Isn't that the same thing?
Yes, sir.
Or I guess, wait. There's the cup of noodles. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is divine.
It's awesome.
That tray, I have to say, the hiking of the pants is commitment. That's commitment. Wow, Kennedy. Wow. Okay. We've got some pirates
So good.
in the back who are looking pretty. Lauren, you threw me off there. You just right. The way she looked up there, that's quite impressive. So you are the extra smart individual that everybody associates with to get their homework done? See, I didn't say that. Doofenshmirtz, you should be more sensitive to those names. We have Disney princesses, Cinderella and Ariel, right?
I'm a princess now. They said I could be. She's one of my princesses.
So you are
Royalty. That's exactly what you said.
royalty. Okay.
We're just up here and everyone else is down here. All the way down here.
Wow. Ariel, Cinderella, and Rapunzel? No.
Actually, that's quite a bit.
Oh.
They said I could be Aurora.
You could be Aurora. Okay, yeah. Okay, I've seen that. And we've got, whoa. We got a competing ramen. No. Post Malone, I'm so sorry. It took me a second. Post Malone.
That's Sparkle. I was gonna do a beard, but I'm wearing a face mask.
Yeah. Right. And so it works, yeah. I get it. It took me a second. I got it. We got fatigued G.I. Joe back there. Hunter? Right? Okay. Maybe not, unless it's a fashion statement.
No, it's not.
Okay, and then we've got savior of the world COVID vaccine creator, Sammy Smackman.
Yes. Last minute.
She's tired. She's been creating the vaccine. We've got an amazing flapper, right? Sort of the 20s flapper. That is an awesome. It has like the frillies. That's awesome. They look so cool. That's so good. That is awesome. And we have. Wait a second. Oh.
Oh dear.
Okay. That. Woo! Orion, that could turn rough if you had like a group of you girls and I'm like, whoa. Okay, that makes sense. Holy cow.
It's like all the halo.
Yes!
Wow.
Dang, I'm liking the more nuanced approaches that we've got here. This is impressive. I talked about it in third hour. Trick-or-treating. I'm curious. I know Cache Valley might be more restrictive. You're going, good!
I'm still
No! I say milk that sucker, man. You just keep going, and if you're dressed up, you merit getting some candy, in my humble opinion.
Are you gonna
People
go
are like, aren't you a
trick-or-treating?
little old? I'm like, what? Adult? What? No.
I mean, like, honestly, you should.
I want free candy.
I think you should. For me, with my kids, yes, but I often worry, are we gonna get dirty looks from people like, how dare you coming to my house? And like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I really don't know how it's gonna be. Because there haven't been clear guidelines. Yeah, Alina.
I know one of my neighbors that won't give you candy if you're like over 10.
Interesting. So they'll be like, no, leave.
No, I literally waited until I was 16.
As you should, I think.
I went with my friend and she was 18 and her cousin was like 20 and we went up to the big houses in Smithville and got our full-size candy bar. I went trick-or-treating last year.
How to grow. I think. But I guess you might be having, well, maybe like Halloween parties or something. I don't know.
Now everyone's going to eat them.
I hope you guys, whatever you're doing, are safe and have a good time this weekend and aren't turned away too bad.
Scary movie.
Ooh. I'm already a pansy. I already got scared from the box part 1 and 2. Okay, so get out your your notes. We're gonna get through some today. We don't really get through a whole lot. Let's see. I've got here till 12:40. Okay. All right, 12:40. Yes.
I should have been a vowel.
I didn't get to see all
You're like Kanye West, Donald Trump, Joe Biden.
Wait, who said be a ballad? Oh, that would have been phenomenal.
Can you do paper because I will put that. I'll make it. And I will wear it.
But Kennedy, I want you to pay attention as we go through this too.
Okay. I don't need that much. Crap. I'm just gonna do it. I lost my AirPods and
All right.
I'm gonna be a ballad.
So wait, it was dawn?
There you go.
It was dawn?
Colorado University.
It was dawn?
Go Buffs. Go
Will
Buffs.
you wear this?
Did you see it? Right? Go
Will
Buffs.
you wear this?
Well,
I make it for you.
I'm Optimus Pier. I'm not.
So then you can
Oh,
like
that's
switch.
pretty good. I like it.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, I
Government
can.
teachers
But it's
in
not good to do
disguise.
it. Yeah. I mean, I can. I know do the choice. But, all right, so we left off last time. We were talking about the different levels. And just as a quick reminder, questions of fact are looking at what? What are they looking at? Questions of fact.
What the, like, they're looking at the evidence and
Right.
the jury. It's the jury.
Right, so there's this comparison, the fact and process. Now, the issue is the appeal courts or the appellate courts, they oftentimes, Maddie, will like try to look at facts, but as Maisie was saying, there's some gray area that they'll look at it, but they can't outright say, well, obviously, my judgment is that they're lying. Because Jefferson said, like, it's the juries that like should have that say on it. Now, be aware, if you guys are called as a jury, this is like, I don't want to get too dorky on you. It's a cool civic duty because it is up to you
That's a lot of
to
pressure.
really figure out if a person's lying or not, right? It's not really up to the judge. The judge can do objections and all that, but it is scary.
Can that like be your job to be a juror?
You can have a job as a legal consultant. In fact, I think there was a CBS show called Bowl for a while that was all about, and it's like talking too of like where you're trying to choose a good jury, right?
That is the Bible every day.
AP Bible. But yes, you can Kennedy not be on a jury for like your whole life, but you can be a jury consultant where you are trying to choose through personality analysis the right type of jurors for your trial, because it's a big responsibility. Okay, so question of fact, question of procedure. I think we're pretty good on that. Now let's break down these different ones. So in part 2, and I think Livy, you have that now. You've got part 2, right? So in part 2, you will see district courts, circuit court of appeal, and U.S. Supreme Court. We'll try to get through as much as we can.
I didn't print one off at home, I'm sorry.
Part 2, yes. Yes. Absolutely. Here we go. Part 2. So, district courts. Right here.
Thank you.
And where'd you get the buff jersey from?
It's somewhere in my dad's closet.
Oh, is that his alma mater, or did he used to work there, or he just?
No, he just buys football jerseys for fun.
Okay.
He has
All right.
like 7, I just chose one.
That's awesome. I just didn't know if there was like a backstory.
Yeah, no.
Dad
I
was
like
this.
Colorado.
All right, cool. Fair enough. Could have won state too.
Okay, 15.
Then we can coach us from the end.
All right, so there's 3 things we're going to write down here for district courts. There are 94 of them, so be aware, right? But the first one is criminal cases have to involve what type of crime?
Felony. No, actually not a felony.
State crime.
Not state.
Local
So if
crime.
it's at a district
Federal?
court, it has to be federal. So criminal cases have to involve a federal crime, right? So criminal cases have to involve a federal crime.
Wait, what's like a crazy one? Like someone did something that was only against the. Like, what's a state crime?
You just show the differences. So we got to a little bit before. One of the examples is like you can't walk, like in Florida, for instance, you can't walk with an ice cream cone in your pocket, right?
Is that like with the ice
That's a
cream on
real
top
law?
or without?
With the ice cream on top. An ice cream cone is allowed, but an ice
That's a
cream
legitimate
cone.
law.
That is. Now,
What
mind
is
you,
the reasoning behind
all
that?
those state laws, we talked about this. Why are they still left on there? Let me ask it that way. Thank you.
Because they're too lazy.
Yeah, they're not going to update it. And maybe they don't enforce it. Yeah, so they just don't enforce it. So, yes, there are crazy laws. Like Utah, you can't go whaling here and all that stuff. Tell you.
You can't swear in Logan if you're a woman.
Thank you.
Question. One, you said there's 90.
Wait, that's a law too?
94 district courts.
Yeah, I swear if you're a woman.
The first one is that criminal cases, like for the district courts, criminal cases have to involve a federal crime. Okay? So I just want to make it clear because you have, in essence, Sophie, not just 2 lanes of state and federal, you also have another lane of civil and criminal, right, Hunter? Like, you're dealing with a couple different things here. So on the federal side, which is what I'll be testing you guys on, if it's a criminal case, it has to involve a federal crime. Now, to answer, what is a legitimate crime that's federal that won't be state? Anytime you're involving with kidnapping across state lines, oh man, that's where things get really tricky for you.
Wait, is it federal?
And that's federal because it's
Because it's
between
in
states,
different
right? Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying any of you are going to be like child predators. That sounds like a horrible thing to say.
You don't know.
Are you?
Okay, no,
He now knows he can't post a YouTube video. He like.
No, I know that's Sarah what I'm thinking. Like, predators. But I don't think any of you will be that way. Doofus shorts? No, but the thing I want you to be clear on is the severity of the crime, Alina, is if you were to have somebody who, this is a real case, a man who is the biological father of the child recently lost custody and resided in Arizona. He then had some visitation rights, right, to visit, but had no custodial rights whatsoever. He takes, after going on a short trip to Burger King, takes a 2-state trip over, well, long story, he gets eventually to California. The severity of that crime is one of the worst felonies you could be charged with because it is not just said kidnapping, but it's crossing 2 state lines, which means A, it's worse because it's on the federal level. Because Sarah, we mentioned before, like if you had a crime committed, who would you rather go against? Like the state lower courts or the federal district court? Probably state because it's not as impressive in terms of law and judges. It's not, they're not going to throw the book at you, so to speak. But if you cross state lines and it's a kidnapping thing, that alone is intense and horrible, and you don't want to face that. So if you ever are involved in potential custody battle, never take the child across state lines.
Thanks, Mr. Beer.
But you guys get what I'm saying? They're like, don't cross state lines. Because
I
like,
mean, like,
The severity increases almost fivefold in terms of the number of years that you can serve. The minimum is 25 years in prison.
The minimum?
The minimum, because that's then called child trafficking.
Then you're like, way to go. You just like wasted.
And Sophia is like, really? But like child trafficking, kidnapping, that is so severe.
I see where you're coming from.
He was trying to like evade the law. Like I'm miffed that I don't have custody over my child. I'm going to take him and show them, and they'll never find me in California.
Is there a...
So it's stupid. So I'm trying to help you be smarter. No, that's bad. I just want you to know, like, once you cross state, yes, but once you cross state lines, it's no longer like a lot of people think. Well, I have custody. I'll probably like at worst get jail time for a little bit. No, then you're getting into the realm of like child trafficking and predatory behavior, and that shifts all the way to like 25 years. You don't even want to do that. So federal crime is harsher usually, but it has to involve a federal crime. That's where a state can't even say, like Arizona or California, they can't even get involved and say, well, that crime was committed in Arizona. Like, nope, that automatically goes to the federal. So a federal crime is... Lucas! He has just the face. Dude, the smart's face as he raises his hand. Yes, Lucas. Yes, Lucas. Yes.
Is there like a crime severity list, or is it like, is each one ranked?
Yes, you will have, when we're talking about class 3, before the reason I found that humorous was class 1, class 2, class 3 felonies. Not only do we have, I think, social media status update, I'm class 3 felon. That's the level that they do mark it as. And the tricky thing in the federal level is there's what they call mandatory minimums. So to President Trump's credit, he's actually fought against this, meaning in California specifically, but across the country, there are federal mandatory minimums on drug use. So if you're caught with drugs one time, even if it's like recreational marijuana, if you're caught with drugs, I can't even look at you, bro. If you're caught with drugs one time, then you'll have to serve, maybe a minimum of, a couple months in jail, community service. If you're caught the second time, then you could have a minimum of like maybe 5 years with parole. If you're caught a third time with recreational drugs, you could conceivably serve the rest of your life in jail. Does that make sense? So Lucas, you're saying about, is there a gradient? Is there a scale? Absolutely in the federal level, and states do too. But that's where they get, generally speaking, into felonies and then into misdemeanors. Things that you wouldn't think of felonies, of like messing with a mailbox, is actually a felony. Because that deals with the United States Postal Service.
Oh, that's... Okay, the USPS is the dumbest thing ever, right?
I would not disagree with you, good sir. I would not, yes. USPS is a weird monopoly thing. Anyway, so guys, felonies, crossing state borders, these are... And again, Livy, let's say that you and your friends, for kicks and giggles this weekend, like, let's take out some mailboxes. It happens in Cache Valley. It happens in Utah. That is not going to be a state crime. There could be some vandalism, but the real case is going to happen federally because it's USPS, right? So federal crime has to be involved for it to get here. As we mentioned before with like Michael Vick, there's many of these crimes that are capital, not just misdemeanors, but felonies. Wow, that have to happen on the felony level. That can only be done. Are you trolling me? Are you looking at me funny for a reason?
No, I'm just looking at you.
The felonies on that level, they are capital crimes. Traditionally speaking, capital crimes are going to be anywhere ranging from manslaughter to murder in the second degree, murder in the first degree, issues of rape, and kidnapping/trafficking. Those are like, if you're thinking of what are the worst things that the government can do to throw the book at you, those are those crimes.
What about killing someone?
Well, murder in the first degree.
Oh.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, murder. So, Sarah, you had a question.
Yeah, so I saw this thing on TikTok, so I don't know if it's true. But it says like a life sentence is 25 years, is that correct? Like if they said like you have 3 life sentences, is that like, because I always thought life sentences is just like jail till you die.
Yeah.
And then I was like, they're gonna kick you 3 times.
And I was like, how the heck are
Do
you giving
you
someone
guys
3
see
life
the
sentences?
25-year thing make sense now? That's usually the minimum. When they say it's a life sentence, so certain states don't have the death penalty, right?
Yeah.
So that can be life.
That's why Jeffrey Dahmer had 900 years.
Correct. They can do concurrent or consecutive life sentences where they can have, like Jeffrey Dahmer, you're serving for 1,000 years because of all the lives, where no possibility of parole, all that stuff, right? Dahmer's the worst.
Yeah, he was a candidate.
Even Manson, like, I'll take Manson, that's horrible. Let's not get in that game. Oh, in psychology? Well, in here too, yes, that's true, hence criminal law. But, Sarah, to get back to what you're saying, the TikTok thing was actually more correct than not. And that the life sentence for a charge can be, depending on if there's without parole, normally they'll say life in prison, which can mean minimum of 25 years, and then you could be up for parole. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But then, as Manny's saying, you could have a consecutive 900 years where it's for that crime and that crime and that crime, multiple homicides, serial killers, where your life sentence is 900 years. Like, that's not possible. But they want to make it clear, no parole, all those things. But 25 years for one charge. So sometimes you'll hear in the news, O.J. Simpson wasn't the right fit here, but for a homicide defendant who is found guilty, you'll hear like they're sentenced to prison, a life sentence.
Oscar Pure.
Right.
Yeah, that. I don't know.
Droyce, I can't pronounce the last name.
The runner.
Yeah, the runner. You could see, yes, Spencer, you could see him in 20 years or whatever. He could be up for parole, but that was a life sentence. That's the minimum usually, 25 to life, but they'll say life sentence. Yeah, for good behavior and stuff like that. Sarah, does that answer your question? Yes. TikTok was sort of correct. Second thing you're going to write down, civil cases. Civil cases have to either involve a diversity of citizenship or at least civil cases have to either involve a diversity of citizenship or at least $75,000. Now, Paige, your reaction should be, oh, this ain't Judge Judy we're talking about here, right? Like, you guys see the difference here.
So, like, if you sued someone for
Correct. So, criminal case, to get to the district court, like Brian David Mitchell, the only reason Brian David Mitchell's case was in the federal district court in Salt Lake and not in the state court is because he carried her across state lines.
Wait,
you guys
so
see
like
that?
a civil case is like if something bad happened to you or whatever, and you wanted to sue, it to go like federal or whatever, you would have to sue them because you knew that it was because it wasn't proven.
Now that person, for instance, we gave the example of Garrett and Hunter of like the broken contract, the explicit contract of painting the fence, right? That's where a civil case is involved, where you break the contract and then a person can sue each other. So that's what we're saying here, Sarah, is a civil one is where you can sue back and forth, not because a law has been broken, but a contract has been broken. Now, a lot of you guys might be saying on that ad I showed you the other day, of being like, remember the fighter jet ad I showed for those of you who saved? And Luke is like,
I don't know what you want me to do.
I don't know, man. He's just looking very studious, and I'm like, the whole look throws me off. But
What was the name for?
His best friend.
Ballooning.
I thought it was. I thought you said Perry the Platypus.
Wait,
no.
wait, who did that?
I don't look like
What?
I know you did that.
That's really impressive.
He's a very good artist.
No, I know
But-
what that is.
But guys, the thing is in that fighter jet ad, you might think, well, wait a second, Pepsi didn't sign a contract with that kid saying, I will give you, so how could he even have grounds to sue? There's what we call an implicit contract, not an actual written down one, but one that's verbal, that we understand it to be. Does that make sense?
No,
So-
weird.
Yeah, that's how a contract can be, which all the nuances of what exists as an implicit one versus explicit, that's a whole other ballgame. Contracts have been written on napkins that have been held up in court.
That's crazy.
The contracts that have been written on napkins that are, when they're drunk, have not been counted in court.
Why?
Because when you're drunk, you're not thinking.
He's under duress or she's under duress,
Wait, I
right?
saw something.
But I want to get to the first thing that you were saying. I want to make sure you're understanding. Civil is where there's a breaking contract between two parties.
Not
Don't
like a
don't think
federal.
state or federal crime. But civil cases can be big. Now the same issue could have both. O.J. Simpson, he was found not guilty criminally, but then he was also found guilty civilly. There, right? Okay. But does that answer the question what civil we're saying? So the question is what can get to the federal level? Most cases in civil are Judge Judy, low-level state court cases. There are examples it has to have either a diversity of citizenship or a butt ton of money, $75,000
Like,
involved.
I had a question about like an example, like Amy Coney Barrett, the
Yeah.
Supreme Justice or whatever. They like everyone's ripping on her for this case that like a lady got raped while she was in prison by a prison guard, and she was trying to sue the county. So that's a civil.
That's a civil case.
Okay.
Yep.
So it wouldn't go to like the federal.
Well, it could go.
If she was suing for more than 75, then it would go federal.
You got it, girl. Now you're thinking like a lawyer. Talia.
Okay, I don't know how to phrase this question. Why do you think, okay, I can see why, but like, why will they not count contracts and stuff that are when you were under the influence? Because it was your choice to get under the influence, and like, if you made a dumb decision, then it's like, okay,
Right.
it's like you cheat on your significant other while you're under the influence. You still did it no matter what. Like, why would they not count it?
Yeah, so
Like, no, I get
secret
that it's like-
messages. Yeah, I see what you're
But,
saying,
like-
that they should still be held accountable for their
Yeah,
bad decision
They like
making.
don't
Yeah,
drink
they-
there.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
drink so badly.
Um,
Like, make stupid
Now,
stuff.
the main reason why is because contract law is the only real type of law that crosses borders. You know how we talked about that there isn't like this big Superman enforcing court cases from China to the US, right? There isn't. Except for contract law. Contract law, because businesses internationally are still held up in court. So Talia, the reason why is cultural norms, they want to have a baseline. So you may have made the decision to get inebriated, and in one culture that could be seen as very bad, but in another culture that's like normal. So don't hold that against them. I know it's not a lock, stock, and barrel reasoning, but you get the idea.
That's not law, that's belief almost.
Yeah, there it is. And so it's sort of like belief,
Which
like,
shouldn't be brought into law.
and that's why in contract law internationally, they're just trying to have like a bare level that everybody's on the same page with. And that's meaning if you're in Japan and you're drinking some sake because it's a business meeting, they're not going to hold that against you because you're sort of like almost compelled to,
Yeah.
even though it's more custom and belief.
They have you drink in Japan, like.
Well, I mean, if you're at a
Lots of
business
countries
meeting,
drink
yeah, exactly.
alcohol.
If you're in Europe, it's like,
Yeah.
all right, buddy.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
yeah,
that's like-
yeah.
And
Tell
like,
you-
what if,
Like if you're making a comment.
what
Yeah.
if you were, what if we made, alcohol illegal, would they still do that?
In the U.S., if we made it illegal, the baseline still for contract law would be that's something under duress. We won't count that
Because it's
contract.
international.
Illegal
So they were-
drugs.
So they
Sorry,
could get.
illegal drugs, they'd
Yeah.
still say even now that's a legality issue criminally,
Yeah.
Like
which
they
a lot of
could
times you'll have a
for-
civil lawsuit. You'll sue somebody for emotional damages, and it'll come out. There's a case last year where a girl sued because of emotional damages, and in the discovery process, they realized that there was a rape involved, and then a criminal case came out of that, right? So you could be prosecuted for having substance abuse for other things, but contractually, you're in the clear.
So you couldn't get like civilly sued, but you could go to like.
That's
criminal.
crazy.
Yes.
So
Well,
they
because-
don't want belief in law to be in the same, but they're putting belief in the law.
Or like beliefs and morals and customs, right?
Yeah.
They do. In contract law, because it's the only one that they try to be international with, they do have that baseline. Does that, I know it doesn't make sense, that's a
No,
fair.
it's interesting. I
But,
fear that they would do that, but I also get it.
Can't wait to watch that video.
yeah. Okay, so there's that. Hopefully Sarah answered the question of what it means. So when I say diversity of citizenship, for some points, what are we talking about here? Diversity of citizenship. Remember, this is only a federal case within the U.S. We're not talking about like France versus the U.S. So what are they talking about here? It's either a diversity of citizenship or $75,000 has to be in play.
Is it like,
Oh, let's go Spencer.
Would it be something like if someone from France came over and like was sued or sued someone else? Or
That could deal more with the Supreme Court if they're an ambassador. But I'm thinking, Talia?
is it like different cultures, like different bases?
Different state. So I don't know, Lena, if that's what you said or not. Okay, so forgetting international, which could be involved there if they're coming from France but if it's a different state, that's the weird word. When they say diversity of citizenship, if you want to be clear, Livy, you can just draw a little line from there to the margin saying different states. So I could sue Hunter. Let's say my residence was still to be in like Spokane, Washington. It's like, bring it. And let's say he lives in Utah, right? And we had a traffic violation, and they're dealing with that criminally, and he hit my bumper, and he's not paid up. Insurance hasn't paid up. I can sue him for $1 and take him to the federal district court.
Why don't you sue him for $1 though? Like that doesn't even pay.
It's the principle. Can I?
Yes, you can, but like it doesn't even pay for your legal fees.
It doesn't.
I will pay you $1 if you try to sue someone for $1.
But legally speaking, am I allowed to do that?
Yes.
Yes. But what if Hunter and I are in the same state, in Cache Valley, right? And it is a traffic violation. He hasn't paid up. The bumper's still, messed up. I got to get it fixed. And I sue him for $1. Can I take him to federal district court?
No.
No, because it's not for more than $75.
Exactly. That it has to be either or of those situations. Hint, hint. That will be on the test.
But if you were in Nevada, if you
Right.
lived in Nevada and he lived in Utah and he messed up your bumper or whatever, and you sued him for $1, that could still happen.
That
because
could
it's diversity.
Exactly, because that's diversity citizenship. Exactly. It's a fancy way to say, as Alina said, different states, right?
What if you have to sue someone in your same state that is not worth $75,000?
So where does that go then, ladies and gentlemen?
Emotional damages. Oh well, no, it goes
State. There's. I thought I heard.
How do you determine the price?
The lawyer.
Is emotional
hard on
damage and
Yeah, the lawyer. If you've got a good lawyer who can make the claim that, punitive damages, meaning you're suing somebody who's wealthy but has had a track record of hurting other people in North Logan,
Yeah.
then you want to make them feel it, make him hurt. The lawyer can jack that price up to $150,000, $200,000, right? For emotional damages, punitive damages, which
So
is
it's not
like.
necessarily the crime all the time, more
Correct.
like the little potholes we can find.
Correct. Yeah, those loopholes, right? To make them hurt. Yes. Yeah, you're good. You're good. You're good. Talia, does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it does.
The lawyer has to carve it correctly. Kennedy.
I finished the costume.
This
Tell me
is
the
Kanye
reason.
West. So I guess the question is how do I?
Yeah. Do you have like a thing we can?
Red marker.
I know, you did a red
I
mark.
do have a whole bunch, and I do have
String?
a string somewhere, but.
Wait, what are you trying to do? That's his costume. He's a ballot.
I was Optimus Pier, but
But you
never
transformed.
mind. Okay, so let's put this here,
He's like waiting.
and I will
Put a check on Kanye West.
Actually, Kennedy,
I know.
well done, well done. As you looked at a ballot to write the names too, I love that.
But he transformed
That's pretty good. Okay. So civil cases are diversity citizenship or at least 75,000. Guys, the federal court system ups that number because of inflation. Lauren, they had it a couple years back to like 56,000, then the 70,000. It might even this year be like 78,000 because of inflation. But that's what has to happen. Hunter.
So, if you were suing and for like the bumper or whatever, and you won, and I had to pay you, like $1,100 or something like that, would I pay it out of pocket or would my insurance company come?
It
And how does
depends.
that work?
If you didn't have insurance, that's when I'd go after you. If you had insurance, which guys, this is what most tort cases, and Sammy's in deep thought about this, but when you see those commercials of like, one call, that's all, like call me, those insurance guys, those lawyers are trying to get you to hire them because they're going to chase the insurance companies. You individually don't. You individually have money. Just imagining Duke Insurance as a student. Teacher. Okay. But
Why did that sound like?
No, you should have heard.
you individually won't have money, but Progressive, State Farm, is going to have a ton of money, and Hunter, they're usually the ones who don't pay out. They're going to find whatever they can do to pay the minimum. So a contingency fee is what you were asking Hunter about before. You can hire a pretty well-paid lawyer, But usually they'll say for insurance claims like car accidents and emotional money damages, whatever, that they won't take any cut of the money unless you win, and then they'll take a cut of that money then.
So with the insurance companies, lawyers come into play? Or
Oh my gosh, yes. They're there to try to avoid any lawsuit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they just rather pay up.
They'll usually, and you'll see this, what's called settling out of court, then go to court. But they are calling people's bluff saying, you're not gonna get a lawyer. I'm gonna give you $50 for that weird ding in the side of your car, and that's about it from the insurance company. And you're like, no way, like that's not covering it at all. And they're like, oh yeah, what you gonna do about it? Complain. As opposed to get a lawyer and lawyering up and forcing them to do it, right?
Okay.
Does that
makes sense?
Contingency fee, that's what you're asking about yesterday. Okay, so the third thing you're gonna write down here for district courts, the last one is, let me ask you for some points. What does the district court level have that circuit court and Supreme Court do not? Juries or jurors, yeah. So district courts usually have juries. Yep. Good. District courts usually have juries.
When do they not?
Man, it's very rare. Whereas the state level, you guys are saying, what if you sued somebody in the state that wasn't for $75,000 or whatever, right? That's going to be a state lower court. And state lower courts, there's a ton of them. You can have like a plenary court, which is going to be a legitimate $50,000 involved, maybe a jury involved in the state level, right? Or you could have a Judge Judy case. That's a state lower court where like they come in and riot. It's like the person, the judge, and they just decide it. That's small claims court. That's what I was recommending you guys take people to, a small claims court. Not to other forms of courts, because that can be harsher. Small claims, there's no real money involved. You go, you get your $500, and your landlord stops messing with you. If it's big, then you got to lawyer up. You got to go through that process. Absolutely. Okay. Yes, Elliot.
Me and Tommy were wondering, how old do you have to be on to serve on a jury?
You have to be an adult, so an emancipated adult, so 18 and out of high school.
Oh, okay.
Yep. The moment you register to vote, you are in the jury selection pool. The moment,
But what if you're not emancipated and you're registered to
if you're
vote?
18 and you're registered to vote but still in high school, you won't have a summons. Likelihood, you're going to be summoned for jury duty once in your lifetime. You probably won't get chosen, right? Because the whole like psych thing of choosing the right jury and figuring out the right personalities, you're not going to fit that mold. If you say like, I hate police, you're not going to be on jury. Don't do that though. Don't lie, because that's called jury tampering. Don't be like, Nazis weren't that bad. Like, don't say that. Like,
Get out of a jury one.
but you can get out of jury lying that way. Talia.
Well, how can it?
See, this is like, what if you take something that happens to you, like a crime too bigger than the district court, and you lose, but like, do you pay that money or does it go from, like, does that money?
It depends on the case. Sometimes the judge will require you sue somebody
Yeah.
and you lose. Sometimes the judge will require you to pay the other side's legal fees.
So they could be completely in the wrong and get it and just get money for it.
You got it. At least their legal fees will be covered, yes. Depending on the severity of it, depending on the judge, but not all the time. If you sue somebody, you just have to pay your own legal fees, which is punishment enough. Garrett?
Does anyone like ever win when they like get hurt like on someone else's land, like without permission?
Oh, all the time.
Like how like can they win that?
They can win that because if in a civil dispute suing them, if the lawyer can make the argument that the original owner of the property has invited accident from people coming on their land, meaning in most states, if I have a pool in my backyard and I don't have a proper fence or a proper boundary or marker and the neighbor's child stumbles in and drowns, I, the owner of the original property, am usually legally liable for that. Another one that might break your brain is if I were a thief and I jumped on the roof and I jumped through a skylight and I fell through and I stabbed my thigh with a huge butcher knife, I could sue the owner of the house for endangerment.
That's not exactly.
Yeah, that's okay.
I was like, that's
So can
awfully
you
specific.
countersue like?
Because Garrett, they made the claim. So guys, we'll get to Circuit Courts of Appeal and U.S. Supreme Court on Monday. Monday we'll finish this up, and then on Tuesday is a mock trial. So Garrett, they made the claim that the roof on the house was done so weirdly that they said it was almost like they couldn't even tell it was a house. It looked like another part of a private business that like, oh, I'm just like jumping from roof to roof. And the lawyer made that claim, and then he like fell through the skylight, and his staff was like, that's on the original owner's fault.
What was the knife doing? This?
So if someone sues you and they lose, can you countersue and be like emotional damage?
Yes, you can countersue.
Yes, you can. You can count.
Will you win that, or is it like?
Yeah, you can. You can win the countersuit. Is it countersuit? Is it common
To win?
No, usually you countersue. We'll get to it on Monday. To negate the whole case, that like if you're coming at me with a lawsuit, I come at you with a lawsuit, it scares you enough to say, let's settle out of court. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's eased out.
Yeah.
I just have notes from that last test because I was getting quarantined.
Yes, Ellie, let's put this in here. Yes.
And then I tried to take the test, but then I looked and I had emailed you about it. And then
I think I said when you
did
get
say
back
when
to
I get
take
back I
it.
can take it.
So Paige just took it today. She's in the same boat. Yeah, same boat because it was locked. So, really, I will have it here. Probably the easiest fix would be on Monday, just in class or in. It's just gonna be right here. Okay. Either pack or in class. Just to remind me.
I will. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Can I get the papers for Frederick versus Lawrence?
Yes.
I need that paper too.
Looking at this fast, you're going to make the case for the principles. Oh, sorry. For the principles of the case, saying you're trying to make the case that the principles did nothing wrong in taking that manner. Okay, and you follow this. Your page, this is your page, is these 4 parts. Okay. Just follow that, not an essay. Yep. No, we were good, sir. Thank you for checking. I know the lights are off. I just had.
No, it was harder.
Let's try it.
How are you?
No, you were good. Thank you for checking. Thank you for checking. Yeah, I had the lights off trying to get them to turn back on.
Can we go first? No, we're not first. We're last. Why would you say that? I never asked.
You know, I put shit in my backpack every day. Like random rafters, like pull stuff out and like screw after.